I can tell you one thing. Technology is the single most important aspect of every business that has successfully scaled.
It's time for that real estate tech guy. It's your weekly chance to explore how technology can help your real estate business explode. Each week, you'll hear from real estate investors who have been there and done that, and find out their favorite technology tips. Listen in as Jordan speaks with tech companies and learns about new technologies and new ideas that will help you scale your business. And now, join your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, CEO of Smartphone, for this week's episode.
Okay, let's kick off with this episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. My co-pilot for this episode is John Whitfield, CEO of InvestorFuse. Really excited to have on the show. John, why don't you give us a little rundown of you and, of course, InvestorFuse?
Absolutely. So, my name's John, the CEO and co-founder here at InvestorFuse. We've been around for about 6 years now. I've gone through several iterations of our product, but it ultimately is a CRM for real estate investors to help them manage their leads, manage their team. We've kind of been through the whole ride of Podio and then decided to build our own software. So really kind of a deep experience into how do you create a product that people love and then keep building upon that so that you create a great piece of software.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this actually because there are so many different CRMs out there, so many different options for people. You mentioned Podio, and there's a myriad of different options out there. And I always like to explore. I think there's no one size fits all, and I think there are people who match up well in how they work with some systems or where they are in their journey. Sometimes works out really well. If we're gonna capture a little bit about how you see InvestorFuse fitting in to that kind of overall CRM landscape, what are the things that set you guys apart and the type of people who really benefit from it?
Yeah. So, I'll answer the second part of that first. So, we until recently kind of really aimed for the, moderately to experienced investor. Just now, we do have a plan for kind of the beginning investor, and we have a lot of people on that plan and finding a lot of success. But we always kind of have figured out that people find a need for us when they are generating leads. So that's always our first question to people. Are you generating leads? If they're not generating leads somewhere, then they're going to be like, why do I have this piece of software? So that's kind of the characteristic there. And our software is divided up into 3 plans. And so we go from like the beginning, one person team all the way up to, I got 5, 10 employees and I need to be able to manage them. And there's features that kind of span across all of those periods of time. But yeah, that's always kind of our deal. Like a lot of people come into the real estate investing world excited about the concept of it. And, they'll kind of run down a checklist of applications that they should be having. And the CRM seems to be on that. But until the point where they're actually generating leads, there's really not a point to have one because you don't have anything to.
Yeah. What are you fucking managing?
Exactly.
You don't have any leads. Like let's fix the problem.
Exactly.
Get your license before you buy the car.
Right.
I say that actually only I'm in the middle of trying to re-get my bike license. I had it years ago.
Oh, motorcycle? Yeah.
Yeah. I had it, and then UK left the European Union, and all sorts of shit happened. And now I'm in the European Union, and I got to redo it all again. So I'm in the process of doing that and buying a bike at the same time. And it's like, well, which do I do first? Because it's been a while. But going back to for me, I think CRM, everybody talks about CRM. It's like just. It's like what people say. It's just like they just talk CRM. They say CRM, but I don't think a lot of people deeply understand why they need. Why is it so important, and what should you really be trying to focus in on with it, right? Because I think that sometimes it's like a catch-all for everything.
Yeah,
and it's so. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think people get it wrong a lot of times.
Yeah. There's a phrase that people often talk about, and certainly other CRMs and even us to a point will market. It's the no lead left behind. That's like the slag line, right? Like no lead falling through the cracks. And we could dive into that, and I think our number one feature solves that problem for people. But the way that I really think about it is it's insurance on your marketing spend. You're spending money to generate leads. How do you ensure that you are processing those leads correctly, or your team is processing those leads correctly to the point where you can get a deal under contract and then close it? Too often people are just like, I need a place to put my leads. Okay, well, great. You could put your leads in a spreadsheet. Does that help you stay on top of your promises to every conversation that you have with a seller? And so our system is what we call an action-based system. As far as I know, it's the only thing out there like this. And that is that every single lead in the system only ever has one action at a time. That's how you change. Yeah. And that's how you change the status. So oftentimes you'll go into a CRM and you got like the ability to put tasks on it, right? And then so your task is like, I got to call the seller next week. And then once you do that, you can complete the task, but you got to remember to go update the deal stage, which is like a separate field that you got to change. We combine that all into one situation where when you go in and you have a follow-up action and it's due next week, or let's say it's due today, and I go to complete it, it walks me through inputting information around that follow-up. And then it will say, what are you going to do next? You could follow up again, and that often, is the case, right? You're touching base with them constantly, seeing if their opinion has changed. But let's say it moves to an appointment. So you set the appointment in that action flow, and it will then update the deal stage of the opportunity. And our customers love that because it's so easy to train people on it. Like everybody, like you just bring somebody into the system. It's like literally just go on your action page and do exactly what it says. It's a whole like walkthrough. It's like a wizard that walks you through exactly what to do. And then nothing, it really doesn't fall through the cracks, because if you have an overdue action, then that is a promise you made to a seller that you are not delivering on. It's so evident. Yeah, exactly.
And so you can then simplify. Like, because I remember when we first talked about this and you sort of first gave me the understanding of this kind of single action, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think so many times people overcomplicate things. Absolutely. And, the actual process of, for instance, wholesaling is pretty fucking simple. Mm-hmm. It's not a complex process, and you can overcomplicate it. And when you're working a lead, what's the point of looking 6 months down the line if the next action is next week? Like, who gives a shit? I mean, like, who cares? So I've always liked that. So does that mean that essentially, if I'm like, let's look at it two ways then, because as you say, if you're starting out and you don't have leads, what does it matter?
Yeah.
But there, if you then do have leads, a CRM like InvestorFuse becomes important. But then there's the scaling of the business.
Yes.
Right. And scaling, all of us who have scaled a business, I mean, you, me, and everyone who've done it know that it's the scaling's where the hard part is, and where the systems really come into their own. So how does a system like InvestorFuse, I understand how it helps me as a guy working leads, but how does it help me as an owner building a team of like 3 acquisitions people and a transaction coordinator and a dispo specialist?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the fun part about the system, is it does actually like scale with you as you start to grow up. So there's several features that we have in play that help you bring on more people. The first one is called groups. So it's a way to divide up your leads into certain groups. And so, we found that once you get to that point where I'm bringing on multiple people, you start to put them in roles, right? Like junior acquisitions or follow-up specialist, and you want to divide your leads. You want to be able to say, these leads are the most important leads, like let's say PPC leads, right? They need to go to my top person. I need to assign them to that. Well, in the campaign, you can say, these leads need to specifically assign to my top group, which includes my top closers, and then they go into that group. They're the only ones that can see it. They're the only ones that can grab leads from it. Where, maybe your direct mail callbacks.
Bucket. where it's a bucket where any of your top people can go and grab a lead.
Yeah, it's grabbing. I mean, so you can do it multiple ways, but leaving them unassigned, we have found is like the best thing because it encourages competition into your team. So it sits there, everybody receives a notification, hey, there's a new lead. The first person to it is the one that gets it. And then you can restrict access. So you could say that the only thing that people can see in your entire system are the leads that they have grabbed and owned. They can't see a single lead anywhere else that anybody else has on their plate. And there's rules too, like let's say they didn't complete an action in 3 days, you can have that release back to the group. And now somebody else can go grab it.
So essentially, because I one thing I've always like, my background. I used to build CRMs inside of Podio, and I remember, we would always when we got into a situation where you would have a bucket like this. The first question the guys who are getting us to build the system would be, how do I stop guys just taking leads?
Hoarding leads.
How do I stop these guys just going in and taking them? And my answer was usually, well, you're going to see that and they're not going to do a good job at them and you're going to get fucking rid of them. But what do you think from a system point of view? Like, is that the same principle you guys use? It's like, you'll see that and you're going to get rid of these guys?
I mean, yeah. So we actually report it we have a scorecard element for an employee scorecard. So your entire team is tracked. And one of the elements on there is how many opportunities were automatically released from them. And that means that they left an action overdue for too long. And then that opportunity got released for somebody else to go grab it. So it shows up on their scorecard and you could see, oh my gosh, this person had 30 leads last week that got automatically released. Something's wrong. So yeah, it does show in that. And it is a conversation that a manager needs to have. But we all know, like, especially nowadays with how many people are in this marketplace, like speed is of the essence. So the system will automatically remove it from their plate. Somebody else can go grab it, take care of that lead. And then the next week, when you look at the last week's results, you can be like, this employee needs to have a conversation because this is not right.
And another thing I wanted to, that I think the two things that I usually get asked about the most when people ask me about CRMs and they say, what do I think the two most important parts of a CRM are? Number one, I say is the follow-up. Is not letting anything slip. And I think you talked eloquently about that element. And the second is kind of is tracking communication and getting all those conversations in there. So, I mean, do those two chime as at least towards the top of the things that you would say are important from a CRM point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think simplicity is another part of that, if you don't have a product, a CRM that you're using that your team finds simple to use, easy to understand, because oftentimes it's just, I don't even know why, the rule of the world is salespeople maybe not the best tech savvy. I love it when I find a tech savvy salesperson, but they're such a rare breed. And so you need to make sure that what you have is easy for people to use and easy to understand. And we had this problem with Podio. Our first version of a CRM for real estate investors was built on Podio. And we would have conversations with customers and they'd be like, man, I love your system. It helps me keep track of everything. But it took 3 months for my salespeople to fully understand what to do, where to go, and how to use it. And that is what encouraged us to go build our own software, because we wanted to make something so simple that anybody could log in and within 1 to 2 days understand how to use the system and be adept in following up with those leads. And that, based off of the surveys and the conversations that we have with customers, is definitely what we have now. But yeah, going back to the ability to track the communication. So, I mean, we have a great integration with smartphone. We have, we pride ourselves on integrating because we want to be the hub of your business. We want to be able to take any place that you're generating leads, any place that you have communication, and bring it in together. And each opportunity has its own like mini dashboard. So it will show you, when was it created? How many touches have you done it? When was the last touch you did it? And then it will give dates through the process. So when was the first appointment? When was the first verbal offer? When was the first contract? When did it get under contract? When did it get closed? And you'll see all that dates in a timeline. And then same thing for communication using smartphones. So you'll be able to see how many inbound, outbound calls, how many calls over a minute, how many calls over 5 minutes, and total talk time just for that opportunity are right there on the dashboard, so that you can open that up and be like, all right, I feel confident. Like the last touch was 2 days ago. I see the total talk time with this seller is 20 minutes. I feel like we are, this person who's in charge of this opportunity is effectively
Yeah.
communicating to this person, our position and what we can do to help solve their pain.
I like that. I like that. I like that knowledge. Being able to, from an even a management perspective, being able to see, is this lead actually being taken care of? Because so often you don't find out until it's way too late.
Yep.
And I think if you've got that kind of more real-time metrics on your lead, you probably have the ability to understand that a lot earlier in the cycle and catch it before anything disastrous happens.
Yeah. I mean, we've had it like just in our own business, right? Like something, there's a red flag and then you fire an employee or whatever. And then you go back and look at their work and you're like, oh, this was not good. Like there were many things back there that I should have seen. And so we're trying to provide that same early warning, that same visibility into key metrics for your salespeople.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think, another thing, from my point of view, just the takeaway of how important a simple step forward you can, that you need to take if you're going to get serious about your business. Whenever I talk to people and they ask me questions about technology and they, I always, there are 400 things you can do. I try and distill things down into very, very small amounts of, small actions, because if you look at 50,000 things, you're never going to get anywhere. And Absolutely. I think what I like about your, that the InvestorFuse methodology is this sort of streamlined, simple approach, and where this is my next step.
Yeah.
And exactly. that to me is a really an important part about it. And I think that's something that I think is very cool about how you guys have built InvestorFuse. So in terms of one other thing that people ask me all the time when they ask me about CRMs, you get, again, the guys who are new, not so much a big deal. The guys who aren't new, they ask me about multiple markets. Is it going to be easy for me to make multiple markets? Is it going to be easy for me to have VAs working in my system? And scaling it up? How easy is it for people to scale up into multiple markets, for instance, or into a larger team with InvestorFuse?
Yeah, it's so easy. I mean, that was the foundation of our groups and premium plan, was the ability to focus on those investors that have that functionality or that need inside of their business. And so, I mean, a group can be a market, so you can divide up your leads to go into different groups, and then the ability to restrict access. As far as I know, at least in terms of like out of the box solution, we're the only ones that have that functionality to say, only show this person the leads that they are assigned. They cannot see any other lead in your entire company. And that's such a key thing. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories of people who have a salesperson come in. They have access to, every lead they've ever generated for the last, 10 years they've been in business. It didn't work out. They've downloaded their entire leads and have left the company. We really tried to solve that with the security process. But, security is a benefit, but also just focus, right? Like if somebody can only see what leads they can take, and then what leads that they have. And we even have you could restrict. So you could say this person just started, they can only have 30 leads in their bucket. And so if they were like, I want another lead, you'd have to go release one so that you could take another lead into your own bucket. So it really lets you kind of fine tune how you want to treat people, how you want to bring them on, how you want to give them access to your leads. And that makes it great for scaling into lots of employees in your system.
Fantastic. And just one final question that I know I get asked a lot of is, how easy is it to get, it's one thing to get, to upload a list or to grab data I've been working on. But if I'm someone who's investing into PPC or Facebook ads, or I've got a Carrot website or something like that, how easy is it for me to grab, direct leads into InvestorFuse and then to make it very clear there's a new lead to be actioned?
Yeah. So we have an entire department of employees called the integrations department. And whenever you have a new place that you're generating leads, you let them know, you give them the login, and they do it for you. So to this date, we've tracked over 75 different types of integrations that we've brought into InvestorFuse, just because, real estate investors always want to try the new and greatest way to generate leads. So any way that you generate leads, it can come into the system, and then it goes through a whole deduplication process, make sure that that seller doesn't exist anywhere else. And then it will go into a campaign to track to that lead source so that you can understand how that lead source does, how much profit does. You can put costs on that campaign and get your ROI, profit per deal, cost per deal, all that fun stuff. And then, it will, every lead that gets created in the system, there are notifications that get set up. So by default, they're popping up inside the app, new opportunity. And then you can turn it on to be emailed or texted out or both. And so people can just get alerted, hey, there's a new opportunity, you got to do it. But as well, we have campaign autoresponders. So you could turn on an autoresponder on a campaign so that they receive a text message, that seller receives a text message immediately saying, hey, just got your information, how can I help? So that seller can receive something immediately while, one of your employees gets to that lead and then can start working it.
Nice. And so then if I'm an investor, I again, everything's about making things easy and making sure I'm getting success. So, essentially what you're saying is you guys, it'll be a completely streamlined process to just invest in my marketing, having those leads drop into InvestorFuse, and then essentially pop up to the people I want to deal with those specific leads. And essentially that's a well-oiled machine I can put in place pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we do the whole setup for our customers. So somebody signs up, they get 2 meetings. We walk them through this whole process, grab all their integrations, build it for them, and then they're off to the races, really having to lift a finger except for to say, sign up.
I love it. Well, it is that time where we go through the Real Estate Tech Guy Fast 5 questions. These are kind of a streamlined 5 questions I ask everyone because I like to make sure I get interesting answers. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with those, John. Number 1, what feature of your technology, InvestorFuse, has the biggest impact for your customer's business, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of talked about it, the action-based system. It's something incredibly unique. It's something so simple that anybody can learn, anybody can use, and it makes sure that you actually have an insurance policy on the marketing dollars that you spend.
Love it. Now, number 2, what's the biggest mistake people make when they get into a CRM kind of structure?
Yeah, a lot of people look for cost-saving functionality with what I call all-in-one solutions. And what I always say to that is that if some product that you're trying to purchase does everything for your business, then they are not good at
anything
or anything. Yeah. And so we took the opposite to that. We were like, we are only going to focus on acquisitions and sales process. We're going to make this the best solution possible because it's what has the most volume in real estate investors business. And just now, I mean, literally in about 2 weeks, we're releasing transactions management, taking a lot of what we learned in acquisitions management and bringing it to transactions management. And we'll keep, as time goes on, expanding in other departments. But we didn't say, let's try and do 20% on everything in a real estate investing business. We said, let's do 100% in acquisitions so that when somebody comes into our product, they can get the most deals under contract.
I love it. Number 3, what's the best advice on how to integrate CRMs into a business you can give someone?
Yeah, so we often, not, I don't want to say often, but we hear this line a lot. I think it's great. The business owner, I think it's great, but my team preferred to stay in insert, last solution that you were on. And my response to that is always, well, if you thought it was great and it's going to help your bottom line, why are you letting the team drag you down? When you implement a new piece of software, it's not going to be easy. Change isn't fun. And ultimately, I mean, it can be a great red flag for your employee base. If they're like, I am not changing and I hate this, they're probably not going to be a good employee to have around for a long time because the world changes, the industry changes. You need to change with it and your employees will need to as well. But have a plan. have daily meetings, review the CRM every day, hold them accountable to the system. And with InvestorFuse, you can log in and within 30 seconds with our action-based system know if somebody is not doing what they're supposed to. So there's no reason why you can't jump on a 10-minute phone call, load up the team actions, see what's overdue, and then have a conversation about that. But the other part of it too is training. I think every business should train every day on their systems. And because people forget things, and it's not just CRMs, like everything. How do they use their phone software? How do they correctly email with people? Like just review something every day. And maybe you've got, 50 topics. So every 50 days, you're cycling back to the beginning. I guarantee you somebody forgot something, and reminding them of that training is going to be beneficial to your business.
100% agree. I would augment what you said about that whole change management process. I have seen so many companies fail at onboarding CRMs because they wouldn't put the minimal effort in to just they want a magic system that does everything they have ever needed and closes all their deals for them and requires no money and no time. That's their ideal scenario. And when they don't have it and they realize that actually they have to learn it and they have to start it the process. Especially in the real estate investor market, I've seen so many people fail for that. So I don't normally get answering the 5 fast fives, but I agree. I'm not supposed to answer those, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's my podcast, and I'll cry if I want to. Number 4, what's the one thing you wish everyone knew about the CRM sort of landscape or InvestorFuse in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a nerdy little answer, but we're built off of a piece of software backend called Firebase, which is what Google has built. Very different to like Amazon Web Services, which a lot of products are doing. And the cool thing about it is it's infinitely scalable. So there's no like max server stat that we can do. So, if all of a sudden the volume increased on one day, like it's not going to affect the performance of our product. So that's something that we made a choice at the very beginning when we developed this to make sure that we were on a platform that if something got busy, if a bunch of leads started coming in, people would not see
drop in performance.
Yeah,
100%. And the final one is if someone's now just starting out. Yeah. So they're a brand new investor. Yeah. What 3 bits of technology would you recommend they bring on first? So they're just starting out.
So this is kind of weird. I usually don't recommend us for that. Like I said, like you've got to be generating leads. And I'm not actually going to include lead generation in my list of 3. I feel like that's just a given. Yeah. But I'm a very operational kind of person. And, I think real estate wholesaling, people like have learned that you can get somebody on your team pretty quick, whether that's a group of friends, 2 partners, or, you're going to get a VA. So own your operations. Get a business email. If I see somebody sending me an email from gmail.com, I kind of flip out internally a little bit. Okay. Please get a business email. If they're cheap, get one. All right. Get a business phone. Do not let anybody that works for you call from their personal cell phone ever. Just like, no, that's not a thing. Don't do it. It's important that you can control that communication method and then finally put the leads in a place that you control. That could be InvestorFuse, but honestly, for people that are just getting started, get Google Apps or Office 365 and put it in Google Sheets that you own so that if you have to kick somebody out, somebody leaves, they no longer have access to that.
And I'll follow that. I agree with you. I love those because they're not just like me, like CRM, obviously. Because I agree. If you're just starting out, what's actually important? I will say, look at the things like Google Sheets more. Do not email people a spreadsheet. Like an Excel spreadsheet of your don't hire somebody and go, hey, here's all my leads in this one spreadsheet, because that's just a recipe for saying goodbye to all my leads. So as John said, find those collaborative things where you can lock people out in a heartbeat, whatever method that is. I love it. Those are great fast 5. Listen, I want to close this out, John. Tell people how they can find you, how they can sign up, what the kind of costs involved. Let people know how they can make InvestorFuse part of their tech stack.
Yeah, absolutely. So InvestorFuse.com is our website. You can go there and check out our pricing. Like I said, we have plans for different types of investors and team levels within inside of that. But we definitely have a deal. So if you go to investorFuse.com/thatrealestatechguy, you can get 20% off your first month. And that will definitely help you out. And we have a setup fee, and then there's a 14-day window where we get you set up inside of the product, and then your subscription starts. So you get 20% off that first month once the subscription starts.
That is fantastic. Look, John, absolute pleasure to see you and to have you on the podcast. I appreciate it. I know that's the kind of CRM and lead management element is something I get asked wherever I am, and people find out I'm in real estate technology. So I'm excited for people to hear this, and I appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.